Maria Lewis was 32 years old when her parents sent a short message that felt like a final cut. They told her not to come to their anniversary party because, as they wrote, only high society guests are invited. Maria stared at the text on her phone, feeling the words settle like cold stones in her chest. She thought she was used to being pushed aside after 10 years of being left out of family photos and 10 years of being introduced as the one who works with old buildings. But this message was different. It carried finality. It carried dismissal. She stayed home that night alone exactly as they wanted. While she sat in her small Cambridge apartment, her phone rang. The name on the screen made her eyebrows lift slightly. Her sister Jenna. Jenna never called unless she needed something. When Maria answered, she heard her sister's shaky voice blurting out, "Why didn't you tell the family?" Maria blinked in confusion. "Tell you what?" she asked. "Mom and Dad just saw the news," Jenna continued breathlessly. Maria sighed softly. "I didn't hide anything," she said. "I just stopped explaining myself to people who refused to listen." Jenna's silence on the line told Maria everything. Something big had happened and her family had discovered it too late. To understand how things reached this point, Maria thought back 3 years to the day she received the project that changed everything. She had grown up in a picture-perfect household just outside Boston, where polished smiles and country club memberships mattered more than honesty. Her sister Jenna was the favorite, pretty, social, married to Luke from a wealthy firm, living in a 6-bedroom house that their parents bragged about constantly. Maria, however, chose architecture, especially old buildings that needed saving. Her mother once introduced her as the one who does something with old houses. Construction, I think. Her father was even more direct. "When you have a real career, we'll talk about adding you back to the Christmas card." The last time Maria appeared in a family photo was at Jenna's wedding a decade earlier. She wore a simple second-hand dress and stood at the edge of the picture, unnoticed. Later she learned her mother had cropped her out of the version posted online. When Maria asked why, her mother simply said, "The composition looked better." Maria kept the original photo, though she rarely looked at it. Back then she didn't know something important, something that took 10 years to understand. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was fuel. And it was building into something her family would never see coming. 3 years before the anniversary fiasco, Maria received a call from the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The Whitmore estate, a 150-year-old mansion, was scheduled for demolition. Developers wanted the land and almost everyone had given up. But the trust still had hope. They needed an architect who could save the estate and justify a $12 million restoration plan. "We want you," the director said. Maria spent weeks researching blueprints, history, and original designs. When she finally presented her plan, she didn't just show what the estate could become, she showed why it mattered. Her proposal won instantly. She saved the building no one believed could be saved. For the next 18 months, Maria dedicated every waking hour to restoring Whitmore Estate. She inspected every beam, traced original designs, and hunted for artisans who still knew how to repair Victorian details. She spent 3 months on the massive oak doors alone, sanding them by hand until the grain looked alive again. Her parents never knew. She worked under her firm's name, not her own, and she had long stopped trying to impress people who refused to see her. What she didn't realize was that her family would soon choose Whitmore Estate, her building, for their anniversary party without knowing she had saved it. Maria remembered the last Christmas she attempted to attend. She had driven 2 hours through heavy snow, hoping maybe this year her family would treat her differently. Her mother opened the door wearing a cream sweater and an expensive scarf. The smile on her face flickered the moment she saw Maria. "Oh, Maria," she said, "we weren't expecting you." Maria held up a wrapped gift, a rare book she had spent too much money on. Her mother took it quickly. "How thoughtful," she murmured, already distracted. Inside, no one even turned toward Maria as she stepped into the warm living room. Jenna was by the fireplace showing her friends photos from a charity event, and their father was deep in conversation with a federal judge, proudly talking about Jenna's accomplishments. "Our daughter has been doing incredible work," he said. Maria stood quietly for nearly an hour, invisible in a room full of relatives. When her mother finally introduced her to someone, she waved her hand carelessly and said, "This is Maria. She works with renovations, hammers and things." The woman smiled politely but dismissively. Maria left before dessert. As she walked out, she saw her gift sitting on a table with a note, "Re-gift to charity." 3 weeks before the anniversary party, Maria received a message from a group chat she'd been removed from years earlier. Her parents added her back only to send one sentence: "Maria, do not come to the anniversary party. Only high society guests will be there. Please understand your situation." She read the message twice, then a third time. Her situation. As if she was a problem. As if her life, her career, her achievements made them uncomfortable. She didn't reply. Some messages she decided didn't deserve an answer. What her parents didn't know was that something else arrived that very same afternoon. In her mailbox, she found a cream-colored envelope embossed with the gold seal of the American Institute of Architects. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The letter was short, formal, and life-altering. She had been nominated for the 2024 AIA Gold Medal in the Emerging Voice category. Her restoration work on Whitmore Estate was listed as a defining example of preservation excellence. On the bottom was the signature of Helen Ward, the same director who had trusted her with the estate. Maria stared at the letter for a long time. On one side sat a message telling her she wasn't worthy. On the other sat proof that she absolutely was. A week before the party, Jenna called again. Maria almost didn't answer, but old habits still tugged at her. "Maria, I tried to convince Mom and Dad to invite you," Jenna began, using a sugary voice Maria recognized too well. Maria remained silent. Jenna continued, "But you know how Mom is about appearances. Honestly, you'd feel uncomfortable around the guests anyway. The Millers, the Pierces, people from Dad's old firm. It's not really your scene." She even laughed lightly. "I'm doing you a favor." Maria listened quietly, knowing Jenna wasn't calling to show care. She wanted information she could use at the party. "So," Jenna asked carefully, "what have you been working on lately? Anything exciting?" Maria smiled to herself. Jenna was fishing, hoping for a story she could share, something to make herself look connected and informed. "Nothing much," Maria replied. "Just work." Jenna waited for more, disappointed when Maria added nothing. "Still doing the old building thing?" she pressed. "Yes," Maria answered simply. Jenna sighed. "All right, take care of yourself. And don't take the party thing personally. It's not about you." But Maria knew the truth. It was exactly about her. Keeping her invisible had become a family tradition. 3 days later, something even more unusual happened. Her father called. Richard Lewis didn't make phone calls. He issued statements. "Maria," he said in a firm tone, "I assume you received the message about the party." "I did," she replied. "Good," he continued. "The guest list is final." Maria waited for some explanation. Instead he said, "Judge Miller will be attending. Several partners from my old firm as well. Important people." Maria nodded even though he couldn't see her. "I understand, Dad." He paused. "Do you? If you'd chosen a real career, law, medicine, something serious, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Maria felt a laugh rise in her chest, but she held it back. Her father's voice carried years of disappointment. "Some director from the National Trust will be there too," he added. "Helen something. Your mother wants to get on her charity board, so everything needs to go smoothly. No distractions." Maria repeated softly, "No distractions." "Got it." She ended the call before he could hear the smile forming on her lips. The irony hung in the air. Her father was trying to impress her own mentor at a party held inside the very building she restored, while insisting she stay hidden like a family flaw. 2 days before the event, Maria received a text from Aunt Ruth, her father's sister. "Sweetheart, your mother told me about the situation," the message read. "She mentioned you've been struggling with some mental health concerns. Is everything okay?" Maria stared at the words, stunned. Mental health concerns. Her mother had not only excluded her, she had rewritten the narrative to make herself look compassionate and Maria unstable. Out of painful curiosity, Maria checked Facebook. There, in the comments beneath her mother's posts, she saw messages like, "Praying for your daughter," and "You're handling this so gracefully." Her mother had liked every comment, nurturing the lie. Maria scrolled further through her mother's comments, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief settle in her chest. One woman had written, "So sorry to hear your younger daughter can't function right now. You're such a strong mother." And her mother had replied, "Some children just struggle." We're doing our best. Maria looked around her apartment. The neatly stacked architecture journals, framed awards, blueprints pinned to her wall. She was sitting in her office, the office of a woman nominated for one of the highest honors in her field. And yet her mother was telling the world she was broken. Lies she realized needed constant feeding. The night before the party, Maria called Helen Ward, not to complain, but to ask about the timeline for the AIA announcement. She needed to know when the news would become public. Maria, Helen said warmly, the committee finalizes everything tonight. The announcement goes out tomorrow evening. Maria's breath caught. Tomorrow? Yes, Helen replied. And there's something else. The trust has approved a major grant, $500,000 for the governor's mansion restoration. We want you to lead it. Maria went silent, overwhelmed. Will your family be celebrating with you tomorrow? Helen asked gently. Maria hesitated. They have other plans. Helen paused and her tone softened. Well, I'll be at a party tomorrow myself. Some event at Whitmore Estate. Maria froze. An anniversary party? She asked quietly. Yes, Helen said cheerfully. The Lewis family, I believe. Do you know them? Maria almost laughed. You could say that. Helen chuckled, unaware of the storm waiting at that party. If you find yourself free tomorrow evening, I'd love to toast your nomination in person. After they hung up, Maria stared at her wall where the Whitmore blueprints hung. Her mentor would be at her parents' party, the same party she was told not to attend. Destiny, she thought, had sharp timing. The next morning, sunlight filtered through her blinds as Maria made her coffee. She tried to treat the day like any other, but her stomach twisted with every passing minute. While scrolling through Instagram, she saw Jenna's story, her sister getting her hair styled, champagne in hand, captioned, "Getting ready for the big night." Another clip showed the front of Whitmore Estate decorated with white flowers and lights. In the corner of the frame, Maria spotted the oak doors, the doors she had restored by hand. Jenna didn't know it. None of them knew it. They were preparing to show off a building full of Maria's fingerprints. Maria closed Instagram and stared at her coffee, feeling something shift inside her. She didn't witness what happened at the party right away, but later she pieced it together from Helen, from Aunt Ruth, and from the cracks her family couldn't hide. Guests began arriving at 6 o'clock in expensive suits and gowns. Stepping through the grand foyer, Maria had poured her heart into restoring. Her mother greeted everyone at the entrance, smiling flawlessly, unaware that her lies were about to crumble. Her father moved through the crowd, shaking hands, bragging about connections. And all the while, not one person in that room knew the truth, that the estate standing beneath their feet existed because of Maria. The party was elegant, exactly the kind of event Maria's parents adored. A string quartet played softly near the staircase she had fought hard to preserve. Guests admired the restored molding, the glowing chandelier, the polished marble floors. "This place is stunning," one woman said. "Who handled the renovation?" Maria's mother waved her hand casually. "Oh, some firm," she replied. "But I knew this was the perfect venue the moment I saw it." She smiled proudly, unaware she was standing inside her daughter's work. Lily drifted through the room in a shimmering dress, posing for pictures in front of walls Maria had personally restored. When Helen Ward arrived at 7 o'clock, the energy in the room shifted. She wasn't flashy, but her presence carried quiet authority. Maria's mother hurried to greet her. "Ms. Ward, what an honor," she gushed. "Your organization does such inspiring work." Helen nodded politely. "It's lovely to be here. I actually have a personal connection to this estate." Maria's mother brightened. "Oh, did you attend events here before the renovation?" Helen glanced around at the restored details with fond recognition. "No. I worked closely with the architect who saved it." But Maria's mother was already preparing her next line, not truly listening. Then Helen asked the question that shifted everything. "By the way, is Maria here tonight?" Her mother's smile froze. The mask cracked. "Maria couldn't make it," she said softly. "She's not well right now." Helen's brows lifted. "Not well? That's strange. I spoke with her yesterday. She sounded just fine." Maria's mother faltered, her words stumbling. "Well, you know how sensitive she can be." But guests nearby heard. Seeds of doubt began spreading through the room. The polished lies Maria's mother had crafted for years were beginning to unravel. pulled loose by a single truth spoken out loud. At exactly 7:30 p.m., the American Institute of Architects published the announcement. Phones buzzed across the room, notifications lighting up screens. A small cluster of guests saw the headline first. Maria Lewis, Emerging Voice nominee for the 2024 AIA Gold Medal. Architectural Digest posted a full feature with photos of Maria standing proudly in front of Whitmore Estate. "Wait," a man whispered, "Maria Lewis? Isn't that the host's daughter?" Another guest zoomed in on the photo. "This building, the one we're standing in," she restored it. Murmurs began spreading, soft at first, then building. Lies were dissolving. Truth was walking into the room. Maria's mother tried to contain the damage. "Of course we knew," she insisted to a curious guest. "Maria keeps things private. We didn't want her news to overshadow our celebration." But another woman held up her phone. "It says here she grew up in Wellesley, your town." Maria's father approached, trying to maintain control. "This is all complicated," he muttered. But then someone read a line from the article aloud, a quote from Maria. "I learned early that my voice wasn't heard in my family, so I let my work speak for me." The room fell silent. The words echoed louder than any accusation ever could. The silence in the room thickened as more guests read the article. Someone whispered, "They told me she worked with tools, like a handyman." Another added, "I thought they said she couldn't function?" Confusion spread like ripples in a pond. Then Aunt Ruth stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Diane," she said to Maria's mother, "you told me Maria had mental health issues. That she couldn't come tonight." The surrounding guests stared, waiting for an explanation. Maria's mother opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "I never said," "Well, not exactly," she misunderstood. But her excuses were unraveling faster than she could rebuild them. Judge Miller approached Maria's father with a stern expression. "Richard," he said, "you told me earlier how proud you were of your family. Yet your daughter is being honored with one of the highest awards in architecture, and somehow that didn't come up in conversation." Maria's father stiffened. "There were complicated circumstances," he muttered. Judge Miller shook his head. "Complications don't excuse dishonesty." Even Lily wasn't spared. A woman from her social circle confronted her. "You told us your sister never really launched," she said. Lily's face flushed. "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered, but the damage was spreading. While the party crumbled under the weight of truth, Maria sat in her quiet apartment, unaware of the full chaos unfolding. Her phone buzzed again, another call from Lily. She answered. "Maria," Lily cried. "Everyone is asking about you. Why didn't you warn us?" Maria leaned back in her chair. "Warn you about what?" she asked calmly. "That I'm good at my job?" Lily's breath hitched. "You made this whole night about you," she snapped. Maria almost laughed. "I didn't make the AIA announce tonight. I didn't make Architectural Digest publish. I just existed." Lily had no response. The truth stung because it was simple. As Lily hung up, the party continued collapsing. Guests pulled away from Maria's parents, whispering. Even Lily's husband, Luke, stood at a distance, confusion etched across his face. "You told me your sister was unstable," he said quietly to Lily. "You said she needed help." Lily's eyes widened as she realized her web of stories was unraveling in front of her marriage. "I didn't lie," she insisted. "I just didn't tell everything." But Luke looked at her with new eyes, questioning everything she had ever told him. The foundation of their perfect image was cracking. And then, the moment everyone remembered most clearly, the doors opened and Maria walked into Whitmore Estate. She wore a simple navy dress, her hair pulled back, her posture calm and steady. Conversations stopped instantly. Guests turned toward her in waves. Someone whispered, "That's her." Another said, "The architect." Maria walked across the foyer she had restored, her footsteps quiet on the polished floors she had saved. Her parents stared at her, frozen. She stopped a few feet away and said softly, "I got your message. I know I wasn't invited. But this place matters to me." The room held its breath. Her father stepped forward first, voice low and tight. "Maria, this is not the time for what, Dad?" she interrupted gently. "For existing. For succeeding." She wasn't angry. She was clear. Her mother reached out with a trembling hand. "Sweetheart," she said, forcing a smile. Of course we wanted you here. We were just worried you'd feel overwhelmed. Maria looked into her mother's eyes. Overwhelmed, she repeated. You told Aunt Ruth I had mental health issues. You told your book club I couldn't function. You told people I did handyman work. A hush fell. Someone near the stairs quietly began recording. Helen Ward stepped forward, placing a supportive hand on Maria's shoulder. Since Maria is here, she said, projecting her voice through the foyer, I'd like to formally congratulate her. Heads turned. The National Trust has awarded a $500,000 grant for the governor's mansion restoration, Helen continued, and Maria has been selected to lead the entire project. Gasps rose across the room. Maria's mother went pale. Her father's jaw tightened. Helen reached into her bag and handed Maria an envelope. You've earned this, she said warmly. Applause began, slow at first, then rising into a wave that washed through the entire estate. Guests moved toward Maria afterward, offering business cards, kind words, real admiration. Meanwhile, her mother stood alone near the fireplace, no longer radiant in her carefully chosen gown. Women from her book club avoided her eyes. Her father tried approaching Judge Miller again, but the judge simply nodded once and walked away. Lily stood near the bar, scrolling frantically through her phone, searching for a narrative she could control. But none existed. The truth had slipped from her hands and was now standing proudly in the middle of the room wearing a navy dress. Before leaving, Maria turned to her parents. They stood stiffly together, unsure whether to apologize or defend themselves. Maria spoke quietly, her voice steady. I'm not asking you to understand everything tonight, she said. I'm not asking for an apology. Her mother's lips trembled. Her father looked away. I just want you to know I'm done explaining myself, Maria continued. For years I tried to make you see me. But you never wanted to. Now I see myself clearly, and that is enough. Her mother reached out as if to stop her, but Maria stepped back gently. Maria walked through the oak doors she had restored and stepped into the cool night air. For the first time in her life, leaving her family behind didn't feel like losing anything. It felt like reclaiming something. Weeks later, she learned Lily and Luke had separated and that her father wanted to visit her new project someday. Maybe healing would come. Maybe it wouldn't. But Maria no longer built her life around who chose to see her. She built for herself now, strong foundations, restored structures, and a future shaped by her own hands. And that, she realized, was the truest victory.